Let us try and take you through what really has played out at the line of actual control as far as the tense standoff between the Indian army and the Chinese PLA is concerned over the past few days and weeks. In particular, the Galwan Valley clashes on the night of 15th June, whereby both India and China suffered casualties, India losing 20 of its jawans in those violent physical skirmishes. Now, what has really happened is that multiple engagements continue between New Delhi and Beijing as the two sides look to diffuse tensions. So they are engaging diplomatically, they are engaging militarily. As far as the military talks are concerned, three rounds of dialogue have been held on June 6th. Also on June 22nd and 30th. And the next round of talks is expected. The military talks on the ground is expected to be held early this week, sometime around on Tuesday or Wednesday, when, as per sources, Lieutenant General Harinder Singh, the 14 Corps commander on the Indian side, and also Major General Lin Liu, who is the commander of the South Xinjiang military district on the Chinese side, will come face to face essentially now for the next round of talks, which is going to be very crucial. Because so far, as per reports, buffer zones have been created as a first step. These buffer zones have been created at essentially the affected areas. So you're looking at the patrol point 14, which is called the Vainala. Also, PP, in fact, 15, which is southeast of Galwan. Vainala would be in Galwan Valley, and then PP 15 is southeast of Galwan, and PP 17A, which is in Gogra. So reportedly, the buffer zone was created, the mutual disengagement happened, whereas both sides, in fact, pulled back its troops. A buffer zone of around 3 kilometers has come into existence here, and patrolling has also been stopped at all these affected places by both sides, including in Pangong so as to prevent any further, in fact, escalation or flaring up of tempers. In Pangong So, there has been a limited disengagement. Some 50 Jawans still remain till the next round of military talks do happen. But the Chinese have also moved eastwards to their side of the LSC. They have also taken their patrol boats away, is what we hear from the army sources. The next round of talks, in fact, will now form and try and work on the modalities for de-escalation, because it will focus on how to pull back your troops, also the arms, artillery, and tanks that have been deployed in the forward positions, which is going to be the next big step before, of course, the two sides start talking about restoration of status quo ante as it existed in April of this year. Now, other than the direct military talks on the ground in Ladakh, in eastern Ladakh, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh also continues with his series of consultations with the top key strategists, Chief of Defense Staff Bipin Rawat, and also Army Chief General M.M. Narwan. Now, there was a meeting even on last Friday, whereby we are told that the preparedness of the Indian Army, even in Sikkim and Arunachal, was also reviewed, along with, of course, the ground situation as it stands on the LSC in Ladakh at the moment. We saw Rajnath Singh travel to Moscow for the Victory Day parade, where the most important thing was that the Indian side actually requested the Russians to accelerate on supplies of arms and ammunition, the orders that India has placed with Moscow, including the S-400 missile shields, which according to reports, the delivery had been in fact delayed till December of 2021. So New Delhi has asked Russia to try and speed up the deliveries, because the bottom line is that India wants to be prepared for any eventuality, for any possible further flare-up on the LSC, even as it continues to engage politically and also diplomatically with Beijing, with Xi Jinping's team, to try and, of course, dial down the tensions. We saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi travel to, in fact, Ladakh on 3rd of July, where in Nimu he spoke about the Chinese expansionism without naming China, of course, and also saying that the age of expansionism is over. He went and interacted with the injured army jawans in the military hospital in fact, Leh as well. But Just 2 days after that, the important conversation happened between the two special representatives on the boundary question, which is the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval on the Indian side. On the Chinese side, you have Wang Yi. And we have to realize that the SR position in the Chinese hierarchy has now, in fact, become even more important because earlier there used to be two different persons. The foreign minister was somebody else, and Yang Jiechi used to be the SR. But post 2017, in fact, Wang Yi is now the state councillor, he's the foreign minister, and he's also the SR on boundary talks. So, in that almost 2 hour long conversation, Doval and Wang Yi reportedly agreed to the disengagement process. There were differences in statements, of course. The Indian side statement referred to the importance that the LSC status be strictly respected and observed. The Chinese repeated their blame game, saying that it was known as to who was to be blamed for the Galwan Valley, in fact, violence. But aside from that, the statement did come across as conciliatory. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, of course, who had also spoken to Wang Yi just 2 days after the Galwan clashes. He spoke to Wang Yi on 17th of June. He remains in touch with his American counterpart, Mike Pompeo, with counterparts from other major stakeholders. Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla has briefed the foreign envoys of Germany, Japan, Australia, in fact, Germany, Japan, and also France, US, as well as Russia, who are here in New Delhi, have briefed them about the ground situation. So, India continues to remain engaged with all possible channels. The working, in fact, mechanism for coordination and boundary affairs. They've had 3 rounds of dialogue already. So, the first one was, of course, before the clashes happened on 15th June. Then you had the second one on June 24th, and the other one happened just last week. So, based on those WMCC, in fact, agreements, the next round of military commanders will take forward this process, trying to find possible solutions of de-escalation. But the key questions remain because even as far as this disengagement is concerned, remember, strategic experts like Ajay Shukla continue to question whether this has happened or not. He has his own arguments to the entire, in fact, process. But more importantly, the reference of status quo ante, the restoration of status quo ante that seemed to be missing from the statement, which was issued after the talks between the two SRs, that has raised worries and concerns. Will it really be possible to even fully restore status quo ante unless the two sides come to an agreement of what it really was as it existed in April, which would also include the removal of the Chinese military, in fact, build-up between Finger 4 and Finger 8 in Pangong. And before that, the major question is, will this be a long haul? Will this be a slow process, given the mistrust that now exists on the ground in the wake of this violence?